This interview is sponsored by Viome, the most technologically advanced in gut health testing. Welcome to the Better Belly Project 2.0, crushing the critters, plugging the leaks, and balancing the biome for your best body ever. I'm your host, Summer Boch. I struggled with my own gut-based issues for years before I figured out how to heal and seal my gut to get rid of my allergies, panic attacks, skin reactions, and digestive problems. I created online programs to help others do the same. Too many people's digestive systems are wrecked. This is causing an increase in all kinds of disease, both chronic and acute. It's not easy to be healthy in our fast food, too busy culture. But we live in a time where the advancement of our collective knowledge is increasing rapidly. You have to stay educated to keep up. I'm connecting you to my favorite mentors, experts, and colleagues on this life-changing topic. My intention is for you to utilize this resource to help yourself, your family, your communities, and your patients heal their bellies so they can be happy and high-functioning. It all starts in your gut. Next up, what if illness was optional? Naveen Jain is going to talk to us about this very topic today in the next interview. And he is an entrepreneur and philanthropist driven to solve the world's biggest challenges through innovation. He's the founder of several successful companies, including Moon Express, Viome, Blue Dot, TalentWise, Intellius, and InfoSpace. Moon Express develops technologies to harvest planetary resources on the moon, develop infrastructure to make humanity a multiplanetary society, and is the only company to have permission from the U.S. government to leave the Earth orbit and land on the moon. He recently launched $1 million Women's Safety X Prize to empower women around the world. Naveen has been awarded many honors for his entrepreneurial successes and his leadership skills, including Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year and the Lifetime Achievement Award by Red Herring. So you've got to listen to this. This was one of my favorite talks. I love talking to Naveen Jain. Actually, everybody who's watching this is going to get 10% off of any Viome services or products, so you can check that out right below. But the reason I like talking to Naveen is he kind of blows up the conventional thinking, or the thinking that we've really gotten ourselves into a rut, believing. And he's going to help you understand how we can move forward and progress our idea about healthcare in a way that you can tap into and access right now. So check this out. It's going to be a mind-blowing, amazing talk. I always get so inspired and energized, and this man gets so much done each day. After I talk to him, I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? I get so motivated, and I can't wait for you to have the same experience. Introducing Naveen Jain. I've been really looking at a lot of stuff about Viome, and first of all, what made you start this? How'd you get into it?
So, as you know, I was doing, my previous company was Moon Express, about going to the moon. And we are now within 6 months of actually launching a mission to the moon. And as you may know, we are the only company in the universe that has a permission to land on the moon or leave the Earth orbit. So when people think about Elon Musk and Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos, and they think they're going to space, all of them are really in the low Earth orbit. In fact, there has never been a private company that ever left the Earth orbit so far, right? So as I was finishing up the project, and I'm thinking, now that you've done the moonshot, what would be the next moonshot? And then I started to think about, there are two big problems that I thought one could solve. One is education and one was healthcare. And as I started to dig into it, it turns out the problem of education and the problem of healthcare are very, very similar. Both of them people believe are not working. People believe they're both broken. And it turns out that neither one of them is actually broken. They're doing exactly what they were designed to do, except that our needs today are so different than the needs when the systems were designed. So in our education system, they were designed to teach you skills, machining, whatever the skills were, and you could use them for the rest of your life, and you had a wonderful life. In the world of exponential technology, it doesn't matter what skill you learn. By the time you graduate, the skill has already become obsolete. And in that world, what you get is a chronic unemployment. Now look at our healthcare. Healthcare system was designed when we were all dying from infectious diseases. So the idea was whenever episodically when you were sick, you go to the doctor, they give you the medicine, and you came back home and life was good. What do we have now? Chronic diseases. And the chronic disease means you're always sick. So a system that was designed for episodic sickness is now having to deal with the chronic sickness, and the system is dying of its own weight. And the irony of the whole thing was, many of the cure for the infectious diseases are largely responsible for the chronic diseases. And I think to large extent, as we started to see the infection, our mindset went down to the very narrow mindset. So when we were looking at the infection and we were seeing this was the bacteria and viruses that are causing the human body sick. And the medical system said, what if we could get rid of all the bacteria and viruses from the human body? Won't we have the perfect human body? They did not, they forgot to read the nature's memo, which is, don't be so egotistical to think that you are by yourself. As a matter of fact, when we look at ourselves as human, our human DNA only produces about 20,000 genes. And the microbes in our gut produce anywhere between 1 million to 10 million genes, right? So think about it from a nature's perspective. Nature created us simply to take all of these microbes and really put them in a portable container. Sprinkle a little bit of human DNA in there just to keep us interesting. Right?
I totally agree. I always talk about it like we're basically puppets, and they're just like marionette, like they're working us.
Interestingly, some of you use the thing. That's exactly the thing I use. I was on CNBC. I think, if you go back to the olden days, we used to believe the Earth was the center of our solar system and everything revolved around Earth because that's what we saw happening. Until somebody said, no, it's the sun that's the center and we revolve around sun. I believe in the next 10 years, we are going to conclude that our gut is our primary brain and the microbes in our gut are the puppet masters, and the thing on top of our shoulder is simply a puppet that follows the command. So you say, puppet tells you, puppet, you're hungry now. Great, I'm going to go eat food. So basically our microbes determine our behavior, whether we are aggressive, anxiety, depression, when we are hungry, when we are full. They literally control what we crave. So when we are craving something, I just blame my microbes. I don't need the chocolate, my microbes want them.
That's a nice relationship you have there with your microbes. I love that. Well, so keep going. Tell me more. So like, this is your fascination. And from this,
So basically what happened was I started to look at the stuff. And then what I do really interesting is anytime I want to dive into an area, I just spend months on months reading every scientific literature that's out there. So I spent literally probably 3 months of just diving into the scientific literature. And it became clear to me that where the science is, the scientific papers are clearly showing that microbes are responsible for all of the chronic diseases through chronic inflammation. So one thing I learned was all of the chronic diseases have one single thing in common, which is the chronic inflammation. And it is clear that chronic inflammation largely comes from our microbes not training our immune system. So our immune system, when it goes haywire because the microbes are not training it, or epigenetically, the microbes have modified their epigenetically in terms of what genes are being expressed, that's when you start to have these issues. So this morning I was reading the research that came out on cancer and how cancer actually forms and how microbes are turning on and off the genetic expressions. And they found the actual microbes that are actually largely responsible for that. The same thing they're finding for Parkinson's, autism. They're finding for depression is inflammation. It is not so all of these diseases are not a disease of the brain. They're simply that happen to get symptoms in the brain, but largely are the disease of imbalance of the microbiota. And when I started to look at that, and I'm thinking, why is it that even today in the medical school, they don't teach you about microbiome? When you go to a doctor who is just graduated or has practiced for 15 years, and you tell them that a lot of these things could be a leaky gut, and they look at it as if you're an alien. What did you just say? The leaky gut? The gut does not leak. You understand that, right? until you start explaining them how it works, and they look at you and say, you are definitely an alien, right?
Yeah.
They just don't understand the basic where the science is. So my belief is the science is at least 20 years ahead of what is being practiced in the Western medicine. And when I saw that massive gap of where the science is and what is going on, I realized there was a massive opportunity to turn the healthcare system upside down. And so what I did is I said, okay, I'm going to create a company that has a simple moonshot, because I believe in moonshots. What if there was a world where chronic illness was simply a matter of choice? What if the illness is an option and no one has to be sick unless they make a decision to be sick? And amazing things happen when you create these moonshots. It attracts the best and the brightest. So I didn't know how I'm going to solve the problem, but that should never stop you from doing it, because you have an amazing magnet, and this magnet is called a moonshot. What if this was possible? And you start to get the people around the world calling on you and saying, you know what, I can help you with that. So the head of the Watson research has been working on the artificial intelligence to be able to collect all of the health data and apply that to it. He said, you know what, I want to help you, and I'm going to quit my job and help you. Dr. Helen Messier that you met. Dr. Helen Messier is, obviously she has PhD in microbiology, MD, and now she's functional medicine. She went to work for Craig Venter. Craig Venter is on the cover of Time magazine as a man who played God, who invented life. So imagine, she says, what good is longevity if people are always sick? So she said, I'm going to quit my job and come join you and fix this problem. And it turns out I was at Los Alamos National Lab looking at a whole bunch of things they've been working on defense work. And one of the technology they had was they developed it for national security. And it was for, they never tell me that, but it was done for biodefense work. Is my gut. My gut check tells me it was done for biodefense work. And the problem they were trying to solve was very similar. What if a bad actor were to do something? How would we know what's making us sick? So they built the technology. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars building a technology that could look at every organism in your body, who they are, how active they are, but more importantly, what are they doing? So they developed this RNA sequencing technology that could be cheap and fast, that will look at everything in your body and tell you what is going on. When I looked at that, I'm thinking, this is it. And the person who was working on it actually came with that and said, I think I can help you solve this problem. And that's how the Viome was born.
That's amazing. So then basically, tell us a little bit more about what it is.
So basically what we do is, so there are two parts to the human body. So human body, as most people don't like to admit, we are more like a donut, right?
Yes.
So our body is built around this nice big hole that goes from here and, so where you inhale and where you exhale, right? And along that side is all of the, obviously not only the digestive tract, all the immune system. So 70% of the immune system is right along the tract, the digestive tract, and all the microbes in your large intestine, that's where they actually help you digest. So nature is actually very smart. Nature realized to create a complex creature like humans, they don't need to reinvent the wheel. Why should it come up with another way of digesting fiber when they have already the microbes that do that? So they essentially, now the microbes in our gut, when you eat fiber, our body does not digest it, they eat it. In turn, they release the short chain fatty acid. So as you're feeding them, they're feeding your body. And that's how the symbiotic relationship was formed. So what we do at Viome is to look at every single organism in your gut. With a swab of a stool, it's called a gut intelligence test. We are able to look at the RNA of every organism. And I'll tell you why we look at RNA, not the DNA or not anything else. The RNA tells you that these things are alive and replicating. So they are not dead things that came through food or meat that you ate. These are actually alive and replicating. Second thing is, when you look at RNA, it also tells you how active they are, because many of these bacteria or viruses, they actually may be in a smaller quantity But once they turn pathogenic, they become very, very active. So you want to know how active they are. But the most important part really is, what are they doing? It doesn't really matter who is it, as long as we know they're producing short chain fatty acid, as long as we know they're producing the vitamin B or vitamin K, or they're producing the TAM, or they're producing the TCA, as long as we know what is being produced or what they're doing, it's less important to know who they really are at that extent, right? What is really was going on, and another thing, that interesting thing we found was that is a part of the puzzle, is to know what is going on in your gut. But how does your body reacting to all that? And then you need to look on the host side. So I always say that, we are basically a host, right? And as a host, when we become a bad host, that we don't take care of our guests well, the guests start to misbehave, and then it makes the host very at unease. And that unease is called dis-ease. So when you are not at ease, you get dis-ease.
Yes. And it's your guests that are causing it because you're being a bad host.
You're being a bad host, right? So basically, then we start to look at, on the host side, what needs to be done. So we look at a couple of things today, and then I can tell you what we're launching very, very shortly after that. So today we look at the metabolic intelligence that is primarily consists of metabolic flexibility. That means, how does your body digest carbs? How does your body digest fat and protein on a macronutrient basis, right? And then we are adding things like urine metabolites. So with the metabolites, we can look at your organic acid, amino acids, and all the metabolites. And by looking at the metabolites, we actually know that what type of metabolites are too high and which are too low. And if you look at your ATP cycle, you will know if one is too high, one is too low, then there is a block there. And if there is a block, there are only two reasons: you're not producing enough enzyme, or you don't have enough cofactor. And then we say, oh, you really need CoQ10 or magnesium or zinc to essentially complete this cycle. And this becomes what I would say the supplements that we do. Most people take these supplements just because they think they're good for them. And you're basically either stressing your system by taking the things you don't need, you stress your body, or the best case could be you just peeing them out. Right? So you're wasting your money, or you're damaging your body because you don't need them. In either case, you're actually not doing a service to yourself. Other thing we are adding that I think you're going to find really fascinating is the whole RNA, the transcriptome analysis of the blood. Now, when I say the transcriptome analysis of the blood, I mean looking at all of the mitochondrial gene expressions, all of the blood gene expression, the host blood gene expression, and we're also looking at the microbiome of the blood. And I know, you're going to think, are you crazy? Are you telling me there are organisms in your blood? Because don't people transfuse the blood from one person to another person? And now you're telling me you have organism there? Isn't the blood sterile? The answer is no. That is a myth. When people believe that all you have to do is do the match type of the blood, and if you're same blood type, go ahead and take it. And by the way, all you do is scan for a couple of diseases and you're good to go. What we are finding is the blood has a full-blown microbial ecosystem in the thing. And that may be completely benign and commensal in one body. And as you give it to the other body, it could cause a low-grade inflammation. And low-grade inflammation causes the chronic diseases, right? Another thing that most people may not be aware of, that is the mitochondria is another bacteria that was captured in the earlier days of human cell. And it's an energy factory for human cell. So it's inside the human cell. But in addition to our DNA, it has its own DNA. So it has its own 13 genes that are different from human DNA.
When I learned that in cellular biology, I about lost my mind. I mean, it is the coolest thing in the world that our human cells have these old ancestor bacterial cells that are now mitochondria. I mean, like, they used to be bacteria.
That's where the symbiotic relationship comes from. They feed the energy to our cell and we feed them. Now, the thing that is going to blow your mind is, in the 2 months ago, there was a research that came out, which is no surprise, the microbiome directly communicates with your mitochondria using the same bacterial communication mechanism. What a surprise! It's the same species, they don't evolve, the communication system hasn't changed. So as in the human longevity, they found is largely responsible as our diet changes, as we age, our microbiota changes. And as the microbiota changes, it starts to communicate with mitochondria that turns down the energy factory, and you start to get tired, and body starts to get weak. And then all of those things are happening again, is starting in the gut. Right. So other thing that we're finding is that, our microbiome communicates directly with our brain using the vagus nerve, and the neurotransmitters that are being used are really the one that communicates to tell our secondary brain, which is people believe our gut is our secondary brain. I believe there's going to be completely changed, where people are going to realize our gut is our primary brain. And when your mom says, Summer, listen to your gut, she was the scientist. She knew what she was talking about.
Yeah.
Do the gut check. And when you're anxious, you get these butterflies in your stomach. You don't get butterflies in your head. Right? And here's my other hypothesis. I'm just going crazy now, right? The neurotransmitter, I believe, would be the ancient bacterial communication mechanism. And now the research that came out that the cortisol, the microbiome is using cortisol in the vagus nerve to communicate back and forth. I believe all of the neurotransmitter from serotonin and other neurotransmitters are being used as a communication mechanism. And most people may not realize that 70% of serotonin in our body is produced in our gut, not in our brain. So when you talk about, people, where people feeling good, the depression, it all starts in the gut. Right? So when people are depressed, what's the first thing they do? They eat, right? I mean, it's the mind-boggling that we intuitively all understand it. At the same time, we go out and then drop a nuclear bomb called antibiotics, and because you somehow feel that you want to get rid of some bad guy.
Yeah, I think I love that part of it too. Like if they're producing 70% of the serotonin, why? Why are they producing it? They're not just randomly producing it. They have a need, like there's an evolved reason for producing that.
And another interesting part is now you can imagine how much data is being collected, all the metabolites, the gene expression. So one of the reasons as Summer, we don't look at the DNA, because people get so fascinated by that. Oh, I did my 23andMe test, or I did my test, I got my genes, and they tell me I'm more likely to get this or that. The genes really are, to large extent, the alphabets. These are the alphabet that could write any story. What story will you write from it? And the Summer writes a different story than Naveen does, even though we have the 99% same genes, right? And that expression is what really matters. In fact, the thing that coming from a non-scientific world that I find really fascinating is that our hair and our tooth and our heart and our lung have exactly the same DNA, but they express very differently. Right? So my point is, it's really the genetic expression, and is controlled through epigenetically. And now there is a clear and convincing evidence that our microbes release these metabolites that are absorbed in the blood, and they control the actual gene expressions. So they actually control what genes are expressed or not expressed using these metabolites. So we are looking at now all of the gene expression because we want to know what is going on, not what could have gone on. And then we apply a massive artificial intelligence on top of all that. To do what? To tell you exactly what you should be eating and what supplements you need, so you can fine-tune your microbial ecosystem. And if you fine-tune them, then you can be at ease and you will have no dis-ease.
I love it. Well, so what is your take on probiotic supplements? I'm kind of curious because when I'm working with clients, there's people who have SIBO, there's people who have various kinds of issues. And, there's some people where I have to say right now, you can't take probiotics. It's like ingesting a library book that your body can't read right now. I'm like, it's just data. It's too much information.
So the two parts I wanted to clarify. One is a lot of people, when they hear about the gut and the microbiome, they say, oh, but I already done the microbiome test. It did nothing for me. And what they really happens is, anytime there is a new technology that comes along, the earliest people who come along are really the charlatans and the snake oil salesmen. And no different in this industry what happened. So early players like Viome, when you go there and when you do a microbiome test, they're basically selling you a snake oil. What they do is they use a technology called 16S sequencing. And you can go look at their website, they'll tell you that. 16S sequencing, all it can do is 16S is a fraction of a gene that only exists in bacteria. And there is a small portion, is variable portion, that can read the stuff and say what genus this bacteria belongs to. So when you do the Viome 16S sequencing, all you get is about 50 to 70% of the bacteria, and at a genus level. So you completely miss out on all the viruses. You miss out on all of the yeast, fungus, and mold. And people say, why would anybody have that? Fungal community is just as important in your gut than your bacterial community. In fact, the microbiota, which is a fungal community, microbiota is as important. In fact, the viruses and a lot of the diseases that we are seeing coming from RNA viruses, and they're coming from the bacterial phages that are infecting these bacteria. So coming back to the genus level, what most people say, what is the genus level? Genus level is such a high level that, it's literally telling you nothing. It's like saying, well, there are some we all are mammals. You could be a man, you could be a dog, you could be a rat. But, even though some women tend to say that all men are dogs anyway, but I think a lot of men will tend to differ with that. But the point is, at that level, it makes no difference. So what we do is, we look at not just the species level, we look at every strain of every living bacteria, every virus, DNA virus, RNA virus, phages, every yeast, every fungus, every mold, and every strain. We look at their activity, and then we look at the functional pathways. That means what pathways are currently active, what is being produced. And we're finding some very, very interesting thing now is when you work out, it changes your microbiota. In fact, we can predict, just simply look at your microbiota, how much workout you're doing. Think about that.
Yeah, people are going to take the test and be like, yeah, that's probably accurate.
So actually, the very interesting happened was that I always thought my wife goes out every single day for workout. And we did the test, and I'm thinking, that just doesn't seem, look, maybe our algorithm is busted. I say, I'm not telling her because something is wrong here, because I know she works out every day. And we went through the stuff. We said, no, that actually, she's really is an 18 percentile. So I call my sweetie on a speakerphone. I say, sweetie, don't you work out every day? She said, yeah, I go out, work out every day for an hour. I said, where do you go? She said, I'm doing yoga. And we all started laughing. And she, like, everybody who does yoga, I can tell you, is really defensive about it. The first thing she said, I will kick every one of you ass. You come with me for yoga and show me you can do it.
Totally, but it's a different thing than sweating and breathing hard and all of these things.
Aerobic exercise. So basically, yes, when you do the aerobic exercise, your microbiota starts to build TCA, and you can measure that. Excellent. In fact, there's a very interesting study that came out. They looked at the microbiota of the people who are extreme athlete and just the people who work on weekend. And it turns out one single yolk called amismethai had 70% of all activity was done by one single yolk in the extreme athlete. In fact, there was a very interesting research that came out 2 weeks ago where they found that certain bacteria are needed for you to become a good athlete. It's called athletic bacteria. So if you have them, you're likely to become a good athlete. And we don't know is causation or simply a correlation. It is possible that people who are good athletes have them, or it may be since they have them, it makes them a good athlete. We don't quite know that.
There's I read an article recently in Bicycling Magazine, and it's called "Is Poop Doping the Next Big Thing?" And they're talking about getting, actual, like a fecal microbiota transplant from an athlete into somebody who wants to, a high performance athlete into somebody who wants to be better. And people have had good results from it, which is kind of, not surprising.
I want to caution people when they do these things. And here's the caution. I can tell you that you may get a lot of parasites as a gift.
Yes.
Just because they are healthy and they're good athlete doesn't mean they have healthy nutrients and healthy body. So point is, when you get the fecal transplant done, whether you have C. diff or otherwise, if you're not doing the RNA testing, you're very likely to get a whole bunch of parasite as a gift.
Take that back. Awesome. So, I mean, so finish up there with the probiotic supplementation.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
So basically, most probiotics are either never get hold in the gut, and especially when you're talking about SIBO, where you have a growth in the small intestine rather than the large intestine. The first thing you want to do is to really calm down the stomach first. Until you can repair what is damaged, you don't want to be throwing fire at it. So you are absolutely right. You're not going to throw a library book in something that's on fire. So it's like there is a bonfire and you say, here's another book for you, right? Because your body is at that time is an inflamed state, and body is really not ready to receive anything. And secondly, the problem I find with the probiotics, Summer, is that everyone gets the same 10 or 15 strains, and
Right.
there's not enough variety there. And if you already have them, you in fact are doing a disservice to yourself by creating access of it. And because when something becomes excessive, what happens is they start to encroach on other bacteria, viruses, and other organisms, and then you get dysbiosis. So by taking probiotic, as a matter of fact, you may be doing a complete disservice to your body because you're creating access to something you don't need. So I really think someday you will be able to create the custom probiotics of exactly the strains that are lacking in your body, and either you deliver them through probiotics or through some type of a fecal transplants, or you could take a fecal transplant, kill everything you don't need, and only leave the ones you need, and you give that transplant.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting technology I just saw at another national lab, where they're actually working on creating a custom set of these organisms that go in a cocktail. So one of the things they realized was, let's assume you want to get one specific microbe or one specific strain of bacteria. If you simply send that one, it will die because it will get attacked by everyone else and it cannot take hold. So what you have to do is create these cocktail which feeds on each other, and then it finds what's already there, who is going to find the symbiotic relationship with to allow them to grow, and which they are going to be antagonistic with that you want to reduce. And this technology can be done in software, and they're actually doing it right now.
I've been talking about this for a while. I call it designer probiotics. You know,
it's going to happen very, very soon.
Yeah.
I just saw this technology. We're just about to license that technology to create a personalized strain of probiotics just for you.
Excellent. I love that. I think that's really profound. So I'm very curious your take then on, what is one of the biggest influencers of getting the right bacteria in your body? Because some of these you're not necessarily going to be able to give through a probiotic supplement. There are some bacteria that are important bacteria in the gut that feed off of other things and grow in different, where they grow as part of the ecosystem. Where do they come from, and how do you influence that?
You actually have to set them as a part of cocktail. That's what I was talking about, that not sending the specific strain, but sending the cocktail of them and including the prebiotic, including the food. And even if you actually take a fecal transplant and you continue with your old diet, then you're going to kill whatever the new thing is anyway. So you can adopt someone's shit and not feed them the same way that they were being fed before.
Right. So food is huge. I mean, food is a major differentiator between people's microbiomes. When you look at the studies across the world and you look at what, cultures that eat similarly have a similar overall microbiome.
2,000 years ago, some gentleman said, a philosopher said, food is the best drug, right? And, to some extent, I really believe that also as people are coming from a different ethnicity and their microbiome, as you know, the microbiome largely initially comes from mom, right? So and I just wanted to expand on that because I really think it's important for a lot of the moms listening to it that nature does not do something completely stupid. The labor pains are not because somehow this is God's idea of punishing the woman for having a baby. It is a way of moving the microbes through the birth canal. And as the baby goes through the birth canal, it actually gets a whole set of microbes as it's coming out. And in fact, the first 7 days of the mother's breast milk is only there to feed the microbes. It cannot be digested by the human body. So think about it, what nature said. Nature says, if I want the offspring I just created to survive, the best thing I can do is not to feed it, but to feed the microbes that are more important than the offspring. And I mean, and think about when you talk to a doctor, they think that is complete waste. The other thing that I'm at least learning, that can be complete voodoo, I don't know, that appendicitis, even though most people believe is completely useless, it's actually is the storage for the microbiota, and you find tons of microbiota in the appendicitis. So when the microbiota needs replenishing, it comes back from the appendicitis, and there is no reason its location is where it is.
Yeah, I've heard that about the appendix, and I think that's very fascinating. Think of it like, psh, we need a little squirt. Psh, here's
exactly.
some more.
And so I really think the world is going to change, Summer. What you are doing, I am just so amazed and thankful that people like you exist in this world who are spreading this message to the masses, saying, guys, the key to your health is in your own hand and it's in your gut. So if you can take care of your gut, you can be healthy. You can work out 7 hours a day and you can be really fit, and you can be very unhealthy, right? And in fact, you and I probably both know lots and lots of people who are very, very fit, but are very, very unhealthy. In fact, what surprises me is when I meet a lot of these supermodels, they all will tell you they're beautiful and they are thin and slim, and every one of them has either depression or autoimmune diseases because they just don't get enough nutrients in their body.
Yeah, that's so sad. What about this bigger picture? We have some knowledge and understanding, and we're getting smarter and smarter here about how to feed the microbiome and how to be in good relationship with our guests. But then there's a step further. There's the chemicals in our environment. There's the soil that the food is grown in. There's our actual interactions within our environment around us that does influence that microbiome as well. I mean, what are your thoughts there?
Oh my God, it's unfortunate, as Summer, that, to large extent, our microbes are getting killed by the type of food we are feeding them. And it's not their fault. I mean, genetically GMO foods and all of the glyphosate that we are putting in the Roundup in our crops, massive amount of glyphosate. I mean, think about what the glyphosate is for, is to kill the bugs. What do you think you're doing when you eat the food that's full of glyphosate? You're killing the bugs, right? So imagine what you're doing is when the food that we are eating is no longer the food that our parents ate. It's no longer the food our great-great-grandparents ate. So we really have to go back and start to, I know it's expensive, but I can tell you there's nothing better you can do for your body to eat a good organic food that is a lack of pesticides. Pesticides in the processed food is killing our microbes and thus keeping us with chronic diseases. Pharmaceutical companies have become the parasite on humanity. The whole healthcare system has gone completely out of control. It has become an organism, the survival of the organism, the only thing that matters, and they forgot the purpose, which was to take care of the patient. Now everyone believes the patient is just a nuisance they have to deal with just to collect the money from the insurance company that's a real stakeholder, or the pharmaceutical company that's forcing these doctors to sell all these drugs by sending all these pretty girls to sell, get them to sell. I mean, the whole system. A pharmaceutical company CEO told me the best drug they develop are the drugs where the patient has to take it for the rest of their life. Think about that for a second here. Not the best drug they develop that cures a disease. The best drug is something that cures nothing and just simply force you to take it for the rest of your life. If that's the kind of people we have running our pharmaceutical companies, I believe it's time has come for you and I and everyone to take control of our own health, become the CEO of our own health, and implode this healthcare system. Get rid of these parasites on humanity and just say we don't need these pharmaceutical drugs that are constantly keeping us sick and making us more and more sick. One drug suppresses one symptom, creates 3 more symptoms so they can sell you 3 more drugs. So
standing ovation. Yes, so well said.
And Summer, I'm just telling you what you are doing is making a difference. It's making a difference in people's lives, and it's making a difference in someday your message will resonate with billions of people. And when they look back and saying, how did we change the trajectory of how humanity lives? Your name will be there because you were the messenger of what needed to be done. So I thank you every day for what you do.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I feel the same way about you and the work that you're doing with Viome, because for the first time, people are actually going to be able to take a test, very easy stool test, not totally crazy, and then get the app and actually see their results on the app so that they can know what to be doing, what to change. I mean, it's brilliant.
A lot of time is completely counterintuitive. So as you know, my example, Samar, I was trying to lose 10 pounds and I was pre-diabetic. And everyone gave me the same advice. Oh, you need to cut down all the carbs. You need to go on a no carb diet, no starch diet. Guess what happened? First few months it works, and then you're back to the same thing again. And now my weight is the same, my glucose level is the same, and I just don't know what to do. I'm now helpless. And when you're helpless, you listen to every advice. Oh, you need to go on a paleo diet. No, dude. I know the keto diet is the greatest fad. All my friends are on a keto diet. Right? So every 6 months, a year, there is a new fad diet. I think keto is now the fad diet. Right? The first time when we got the Viome test going, guess what? I'm the first victim here. So I do the test. It turns out I needed to be eating more than half of my diet as carbs. And as soon as I changed my diet to eat more complex carbohydrate and less protein and less fat, not only my weight went down, my blood glucose went down. And I feel so good by eating more carbs. And I'll keep telling every girl wants to kiss me because everyone wants my micro. They want to eat carbs.
Convenient. I see you have a ulterior motive here. Well, and so you give food recommendations within Viome as well?
It's not only food recommendation, we give very, very individualized food recommendation. For example, for me, it says, don't eat spinach, don't eat avocado, don't eat lentil, legumes, or tofu. And these were exactly the things I was eating. It says, eat more cauliflower, eat carrot, but don't eat arugula.
Oh, interesting. All right, I'm going to go take this test.
You absolutely have to do it, Samar. And it goes through the actual recommendation of what is right food, what's the right supplement, and it looks at all of your symptomatic data, all of your metabolic information, all of your gut information, and then tells you what supplements, what probiotics. And to large extent, it's an action plan. If we determine not that because you have a SIBO, because we are not a medical diagnostic company, so we don't tell you we don't diagnose anything, but if you happen to have symptoms that seem to match with certain diseases, we actually just focus on reducing the inflammation, and that reduces all of the chronic diseases.
Wonderful. And that's the shift that has to happen, right? The paradigm shift from looking at these diseases and people as, diseased individuals, and instead looking at them as, healthy individuals whose bodies just aren't working right because they don't have what they need.
And the pharmaceutical company is the one that created this bad model: one disease, one drug. And what I think you and I both constantly are preaching, that once you have a chronic inflammation, the symptoms may be completely different in two people. That means if somebody with a massive chronic inflammation, it may show up in Alzheimer's in one person and may show up as a cancer in another person. It may show up as obesity in one person. It may show up as diabetes in someone else. So diabetes is not a disease you catch. Cancer is not a disease you catch. You develop it over a long period of time. So when people come and say, I can't believe my friend just got cancer. No, your friend did not get cancer. Your friend has been having this thing for a long period of time. You just never saw it until now, right? So if you can monitor the inflammation, and that's one of the things some of you are going to focus on at Viome, is to show you your inflammation by looking at all of the inflammatory marker from IL-6, IL-8, CRP, TNF-alpha, every single inflammation marker, and see where the inflammation is. And as you change your diet and supplements and probiotics, and as the inflammation is coming down, you can see it. And your inflammation has to come down first before you see the symptoms come down, right? And if people say, well, how do I know it's working? I'm not getting any disease. Well, the fact you're not getting any disease is why it's working.
Yeah, exactly. How many times should people take Viome, or how often?
It's interestingly, our belief was that maybe it's really a decision about each individual, about how good they are about following the information. So if you believe you made a substantial change in your diet and things, then you should test it again to see what's going on. But if you say, look, I really haven't been following it, don't waste your money. So what we did now is just yesterday, we changed the pricing to fit that model that says, as opposed to paying $3,000 for a test, we reduced the price down to $399. Just $399, you can do a test, and you get a 1 year of subscription service with all of the app. And by the way, it's artificial intelligence constantly guiding you and communicating with you. And you can do as many tests as you want at $199 each. So you can do, my recommendation is, if you're following the diet, every 6 weeks to 8 weeks is a good time to retest yourself, because your body changes and adapts, and you need to adapt with that. You can't say, I got my car tested 2 years ago and it's just fine now, right? So your body adapts really fast to your new diet, and you have to constantly keep them in balance. The reason I'm told to avoid all this stuff is because I was eating only that stuff. So those microbes are really too much, and everything else is dying. So now I have to bring them up by reducing the eating this, increasing this eating. And if I keep doing it, then I'm going to have, again, imbalance. So I have to go back up and down. You have to constantly keep them in balance.
Yeah. And you kind of have to do some of this work to figure it out for you. We're all individuals. We're all unique. Well, this has been incredible. I love this conversation. My mind is blown. I'm always excited to talk to you, and, just very inspiring. So thanks so much for joining me and being here.
Summer, this is, it's an honor to be here. And Summer, if you don't mind putting a link down there so people know where to go, because, immigrant accent of Viome, people always say, is it like W or is it we?
We will. I'll make sure and put a link on there for everybody. Absolutely. All right. Thanks again for your time.
Good talking to you.
Thank you for attending this exclusive interview. Visit betterbellyproject.com/upgrade to find the link to purchase the complete Better Belly Project collection. There was so much info we covered today. You're going to want to listen to this recording again and again. You can do it while running errands, exercising, or commuting. Plus, you're going to get the transcripts for each interview, bonuses that the speakers have given just to those who upgrade to the All Access Pass, and all the audio and video recordings for each interview. There are more amazing experts to come. I'll see you on the next interview.